Hello, my name is Lucy and I'm a clinical trainer with Excelis. Today I'm going to walk you through your Dragonfly upgrade training. This is going to be training of Dragonfly's new features and changes from Cortex UR. It will not change your current processes. Before going onto the Dragonfly screen, I'm going to reference these two documents that should be available from your leaders. The first one will be the standardized Dragonfly processes, which is like a guide that walks you through how to perform specific tasks. Then we also have the Smart Filter Rules fact sheet, which is more of an FYI. It's also a reference page talking about some of the smart filters that I'm going to be reviewing with you today. From here, you can follow along and choose whichever patient or population you'd like, or you can select the same one as me. Feel free to chart while in training today. This is your stage environment, so you will not break anything. All right, let's get started. Here is the new Dragonfly platform. This should look a little similar to the Cortex feel. I'm going to walk you through the new changes and the things that are the same. Keep in mind, we are still actively updating Dragonfly, so things are continuing to get enhanced. And when they do, we will display the updates in the section called Release Notes, so you will know what is new in Dragonfly. You may have also noticed that you received a tooltip prompt and a welcome guide the first time that you signed in. This gives you added information about a certain area or tool in a Word or a video format. Later in training, I will show you how you can view the release notes and tools so you can view them as needed. The first page you land on when you log into Dragonfly is your patient work queue. We are looking at 29 patients in our current population. The reason that we're looking at 29 patients right now is because if you look at the status column, our list of patients includes more than just active patients. If you click on the three lines, which is the little hamburger icon, you'll see that this list of patients includes discharges as well as all other statuses like observation, inpatient, outpatient, arrived in ED. Unlike Cortex, where discharges were on a separate queue, now they can be in the same queue. If you do create a queue with discharges, they will typically stay on this list for about 30 days, then they're going to fall off this list. As we go through this training, I'm going to show you how to make your own list and narrow down the list to the filters that you want to create a custom population. In Dragonfly, this is called custom population. In Cortex, you know that as custom work queues, where you use to filter the patient's work queue. The next item I'd like to point out is there's a little blue circle at the bottom left corner of your screen, and it looks like a comment speech bubble. If you open that up, it's going to give you some helpful user tools, such as the very first thing on your menu is your Dragonfly Welcome Guide. This tool shares with you a short welcome video to Dragonfly software and an option for a tour of some of the items on this screen, which we will review in training today. So I will close this out for now. The next item I want to review here is our user guides. When you click here, it's going to give you specific information on a category you choose. So let's say you don't remember what the view and do section is. When you click on that here, then it's going to give you more information about the view and the do tabs. If you click on release notes, this is where you're going to be able to see any enhancements or upgrades that were made in Dragonfly. They will be separated by specific dates, and then it will say feature enhancement. And the last item in here is a way to contact Excelis support. To close out this table of contacts, you would select the X at the bottom left corner of your screen. The blue circle will be available to you as you move throughout Dragonfly, and if you'd like to go ahead and move it to a different location, all you need to do is go ahead and click, drag anywhere that you prefer to have it on this screen. As we continue, let's look at some of the columns on the patient work queue. You'll notice that as we look at the columns, some look a little bit different, and you may be wondering where some of your favorite columns are from Cortex. If you can't see the horizontal bar, let's scroll down here, and then you'll be able to see the horizontal bar at the bottom, and you can move it all the way to the right, and you'll be able to see more columns that are available to you. A neat feature we have here is our column waffle. Over here on the very right, there is a column waffle icon. When you click on it, this is where you're going to be able to see your available columns and any additional columns as well. Now you can customize your columns. You can add or hide columns just by clicking on the little checkboxes next to the column name. The only ones that you can't hide or move are the patient name, account number, or status, and those will be grayed out. There are some columns that we recently added as well. Those columns are at the bottom here. They're called Last You Are, PA, Reviews, and Status columns. You could move your columns right in this section to your preferred order, as we have the same ability to move them on the patient work queue, just like in Cortex. So let's move the comment column to the right of the patient name column. So I will go here and find my comment column. I will click on the equal sign icon, and then I'm going to go ahead and click and drag and let go to the very top. You'll see now that the comment column is before the patient name. Once you place your columns, they will stay in place even after you log out. And no longer is your discharge population set up differently than any other population. Your columns will be the same in each population. So now let's also move the for last URPA review column status to the right after the patient name. So I will click on these four columns and drag them underneath the patient name. Now let's turn them on by selecting the checkbox. You can see them appearing on your work queue. Now let's close this by clicking the waffle column icon. Notice the order of the columns on your patient work queue here. We have our comments, our patient's name, and then now we have the last PA and UR columns here after the patient's name. You can also remove a column. So for example, if I wanted to remove this location column, all I need to do is grab the column, drag it, and drop it. If you want to bring back the column, go back to the waffle column icon here, find the location column, and then click on the checkbox. And now it will reappear in your work queue. I will go ahead and close the column waffle again here by clicking on the icon here. And we also are currently working on being able to adjust the column width, so more to come on that. Now you can also click the column header. Let's use comments here. As an example, you can click on it once and bring all the comments to the very top. So just like in Cortex, you can do an ascending or descending sort by clicking the headers. Notice that the comments column in the bright red speech bubble with the exclamation point, this is a high priority comment. So that's similar to Cortex. You'll also see a blue comment speech bubble, which means there is a regular comment. If you click on the comment bubbles within the comment column, you can see all the comments that exist in the patient's encounter. So I will click on this red speech bubble here, and you'll be able to see on the right side of this pop-up box, the comment and what type of comment it is, whether it is regular or high priority. I'm going to click out of this by clicking in this little gray area. Now scroll all the way to the left if you haven't done so. Scroll all the way to the left. Notice there's no more notification reason column. Your notification now lives in a few different areas in Dragonfly. One of the areas you'll see notifications are these little red dots to the left of the patient's name. We will access this section later in training. Another new icon here is the orange content indicator. The orange content indicator, which currently indicates that there is a review, whether it be a UR, a PA, a payer review, or a comment on the account. When I click on the orange content indicator, it only shows the latest UR review, PA, or payer review here, and also the latest comment. Notice in the latest review summary, there will be either a blue C or possibly a gray P. The blue C indicates there is a completed review, and the gray P will indicate there's a pending review. As Dragonfly is getting new upgrades and evolving, we may see that current content for this indicator change in the future. I will go ahead and click out of this pop-up box here. Moving to the right, so scroll to the right here, we will still have the 6 analytic columns you're used to seeing in Cortex. So here at the very top, we'll have our wellness, initial acuity, we'll have current acuity, CLS, max CLS, MEL, and GMLOS if you are using PDRGs. Their indicator icons are a little bit different. So instead of just the red, the yellow bubbles, and the green bubbles, we've updated it now so that we also have text as well. Another new feature is unlimited scrolling. Unlimited scrolling here in that vertical scroll bar. We no longer have to go to different pages to be able to see your entire list. You can scroll through all of your patients if you wanted to, even if there's thousands of patients on your list. The next item is your menu bar icons at the very top left corner that lived on the left-hand side of the screen in Cortex. For these, we will talk more about them towards the end of training. You can also refresh your data by clicking on this last refresh timer next to the patient work queue. Now, the icons that you may remember on the top right of your screen now live in the ellipses right by your email at the top right corner of your screen. If we hover over the email or even the ellipses, because they are together, you will see an inactivity timer pop up. You will still have 90 minutes like you did in Cortex. To increase that inactivity time, you can either click on the email or ellipse and the options will open. Notice again that inactivity timer here. To refresh, you can click on the clock like you did in Cortex. And then once you click on that, it'll come back to 90 minutes. Next, you will click on the settings. This should look familiar. You can see over here your user profile. You'll have your display name. Going down the page, you'll see contact information. This is where you'll input your information for when you send any faxes, business synopsis once you are in the production environment. Your contact information saved here will populate in the sender section when it's time to fax. So make sure you enter the work number and fax number. We are going to skip the text feature because it's currently not working, so you will not receive any text notifications. Underneath here, we have our application preferences. You have the option to choose a starting page. For example, right now our starting page is patient work queue. Maybe you are an admin and when you click on this drop-down arrow, you want to start with patient search because that's what you primarily use. Below that is your default facility. This is if you have multiple facilities, you can also default to a specific one. If you don't want any of these to be your default, similar to Cortex, you want your custom work queue as your default. Here in Dragonfly, it's called custom population. I will show you later how to make your custom population your default if you prefer that page. Now go ahead and scroll down to the bottom of your screen. Here you will have the options for communication preferences. The first one is really important. This is where you have the option of getting copies of those notifications to your email. So you will want to make sure that you select this once you are in production environment. If you are in your stage environment, please do not check mark this item as you will start receiving emails. We're going to skip this text message feature because it is currently not working. And then scrolling back to the very top here, you can see that you can reset your password here. After you make any changes, make sure that you save at the bottom right corner of your screen. I'm going to go ahead and just click cancel since I did not make any changes. Now going back to the top right by clicking my email, I'm going to go ahead and go through the About section. The About section is going to tell you the specific version, stats on Dragonfly, in case you contact Excelis support and they need to know more information. I will click the X at the top to close this out. The next item here is your help. When you click on the help button, it is going to open up a new browser page here. This is going to give you the fact sheet as well as the user guide in one document, which opens in a new window. This is a very large document. It's 226 pages. Similar to Cortex, to quickly find information, you can still use that Control F on your keyboard to be able to search for different keywords and know more about that specific information. I'm going to exit out of the search field and go at the very top. And just mention here that it is a very large document. However, it is super helpful. So if you are new to Dragonfly, highly recommend that you take advantage of this fact sheet and guide, as it not only gives you information, steps, but also screenshots. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this browser page so that I can go back to my Dragonfly. Then the last item I want to share with you here is our sign out button. So this is where you can still go ahead and sign out. I'm going to go ahead and click in this little gray area. The next thing I want to talk to you about is our population drawer. So remember, in Cortex, you know it as custom work queue, where you used to filter the patient's work queue. In Dragonfly, this list here is now called the custom population. So at the top right side of your screen, you're going to be able to see your current population. Try to think about population as the work queues or facilities that you're able to choose within Dragonfly. Now, for any opened population you have, you can click this drop down to download, or you can click the printer icon to print this list if you want. Now, if I click on this blue arrow box here on the right, it's going to go ahead and open my population drawer. Under the facility population here, here's those different facilities you may be working in or have access to. Now let's talk about adding a custom population. Think of this again as custom work queues that you're used to seeing in Cortex. Choose Add New Custom Population at the very top. You will see a list of facilities you have access to, and this is where you select the facilities you like in your custom population. So I'm going to go ahead and select both. Notice now there's a little pencil next to both of these facilities. This is where I can go ahead and edit the group of patients I want in that facility by location, service, or attending. So I will click on this little pencil here at the top. Again, this is based on how you work within your facility. For location, I would deselect all, and I can choose specific floors that I want to see in my custom population. I'm going to go ahead and select all again for this example. Now, regarding hospital service or attending, our thinking on choosing will be a little bit different than what we were used to in Cortex, actually pretty much the opposite. So if you want all the physicians, you will leave the select all chosen, and any new doctors that are added will automatically be put on this list. Same thing goes for hospital service as well. Now for this custom population, I'm going to leave everything selected. We can go ahead and scroll here and notice that there is that second facility that we also added. You can click on that pencil here and of course make any of the selections based on how you work. For this example, I'm just going to leave everything selected. Once both my selections are made for my facilities, I'm going to go ahead and click the next button at the bottom right. Under Cortex Insights, if you're currently working using any CLS parameters, this is where you can set them as well. You do have the option here under the current CLS to choose is between, is less than, and is greater than. The same options will be here for the max CLS. So as an example, I would enter here for max CLS is between 65 and 85. This is considered the focus point. Now this is just an example, so I will go back to is between, click select, and have those options removed. A new feature has been requested was to have the ability to create a custom discharge list as well. So now if you go down to the bottom, you have the ability by choosing your patient's admission status. You can choose to make an active or discharge list or list encompassing all statuses. Active is currently selected by default. Selections made here correspond to the registered status here on the right side. Now, just like in Cortex, you can make an infinite number of custom populations. The options are endless, so you can make several custom populations within a facility or combine facilities. Now, notice I'm choosing active for the admission status. Over here on the right-hand side, you have the selections for registered statuses. If I want to specifically choose, I can deselect all statuses here, then select the ones that I want. So for this example, let's say I want to select admit to inpatient and place an observation. Now let's talk about the discharge statuses. I will need to come over here back on the left-hand side and select the discharge to view my options. Now, if I want to go ahead and just look at the discharges for a minute, I'm going to unselect that active so we can just focus on the discharges. Notice that over here, the status options are different. I can choose specific ones. So let's go ahead and choose discharge as inpatient, discharge as outpatient, and also observation. I always recommend choosing that general discharge icon here at the top as well to ensure that there are no missing patients due to their discharge statuses. There's also an option for time elapsed since discharge. If you wanted to see discharges based on the following options, this is only for the discharge option here. Once I select the dropdown, you can see that you can make discharge list with the discharges from today, yesterday, both, or within the available options here. If I wanted to make a quick weekend list, today was Monday. For example, I want to choose discharges within the last 3 days. It would include Monday, Sunday, and Saturday discharges. Now I'm going to go ahead and deselect the discharge option and I'm going to choose the active. On the right side, I will click admit to inpatient and place an observation. You do have lots of different options of choosing LOS. So this is only for the active status. If we choose under length of stay hours, think of this within or between for the options given. So the patient has, for example, here under the dropdown, length of stay within 0 to 24 hours or 48, 72, 96. You also have the range of options within hours selected. Now let's move over to the days. For the days, it means someone's length of stay is X amount of days. So for example, in this dropdown, I can select amount of days, 3 days, 7 days, and also you have that option of range if you wanted to choose. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the length of stay options. And the last item in here is the option to narrow your list down by last name. So if you split a unit by last names, for example, you can go ahead and use this column here. Now let's go ahead and click the next button at the bottom right. Now you have the option here to filter by payer coverage. So very similar to Cortex, on the left-hand side, you're going to have types like Medicare, VA, Medicaid. Then on the right side, you have individual plan names. So you can deselect include all to see all of the different ones that are available to you. For this example, I will actually just include all plans. And a new feature in Dragonfly was adding a secondary insurance filter option. So if you needed to make a custom population based on a secondary plan, you do have that option now. I'm going to go ahead and include all custom lists by selecting include all plans here. Then choose the next button at the bottom right. As you can see, you have many options to create custom populations. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and name the list. So here I can go ahead and name our list. You can skip the description section. Then below is where you have the summary of all of your settings you selected for your custom list. You have the option to also at the very bottom set as my default population. Then this will become your custom population and be your default page when you log into Dragonfly. Now I'm going to go ahead and click the Save button at the bottom right. Now going back up to the current population blue arrow box, here you can see your new population under custom population section. Notice at the very top next to your custom population, you have a little pencil and a trash can. Now the little pencil is where you can edit your custom population and make any changes to it. The trash can will be if you need to delete this list. So now I'm going to select the custom population we just made. So now we have our new custom population. Another item that I want to review is that you can actually filter by a lot of these different columns. So when you hover over these columns, you'll see these three little lines, that hamburger icon. And when you click on any one of these, you can go ahead and filter by the specific column. So let's say I will click here in the facility column. And then I only want to see patients from one facility. I can unselect the select all button and then select the specific hospital that I want to see only patients. Now it's going to filter by the specific column. You'll see that the column will turn blue, and then there's going to be a little icon there that looks like a little funnel. That means that it's filtered by the specific column. If you ever are confused about the number of patients you have and you know that there's more patients, just make sure you double check that you don't have any filters on here. 9 out of 10 is usually why you're not seeing everyone on your list. Now to go ahead and remove any filter, you'll click back to that hamburger icon and you'll go all the way to the right side here and click that reset button. And then it's going to remove that filter from your view. All right, let's talk about the Add Smart Filter options on the left side of your screen. So here we have our Add Smart Filter button. When I click on that button, it'll open up a sidebar. Some of the default work cues you're used to seeing in Cortex landed here, as well as some notifications. So now that I selected it, it will open up the sidebar. We call that sidebar a smart filter drawer. This will allow you to work to zero. It will also allow you to choose what you want to focus on based on the categories displayed. Now, the red dots that are next to those categories indicate there's at least one patient in that smart filter. If there aren't any red dots, it means there aren't any qualifying patients in the smart filter. The red dots will be based on the current population that you have opened. It doesn't consider any filters you also may have placed in your population. So now we're going to talk about the different categories of smart filters available. We are going to circle back to this My Patients category, which is where you can follow, save patients until they're discharged or until you manually remove them from your list. And the reason why is because we're not following any patients right now. So I will show you in a little bit how to add them to your list. This is another enhancement that was requested in Cortex, and we made that available in Dragonfly. Now, the next one I'm going to go ahead and focus on is the revenue compliance impact. So think about this here as the money aspect. This is probably where you're going to go ahead and focus on when you first log in for the day, as it impacts that financial bottom line. So remember your status conflicts in Cortex. Now they have their own category here. You'll have a second midnight approaching. You'll have short stay inpatient discharge, IPO CPT without patient observation order. Then we'll also have status conflict inpatient and even status conflict observation outpatient, and even the ones that are past or greater than 24 hours. Scrolling down to your clinical reviews, for example, you can see now under this section in patients that don't have a review completed today, any with the next review due or overdue, meaning those that are due today or past due. So they'll be right here. And if you wanted to filter for just pending reviews, you can also use this pending review section here. Now we've also added a physician advisor section here, so you can easily see those reviews that the PA has been involved with. The PA review requested means that someone has sent out a status determination or peer-to-peer request to a physician, and now you're waiting for a response back. This is really helpful, especially if you may be covering for someone else. You can see those requests that have been sent out as well as those determinations. Now, once the physician has completed that review, you will then see them underneath the PA status determination complete or the PA peer-to-peer completed, which makes it easy for you to monitor. Then we also have that readmission below. So you'll have readmission within 3 days or readmission within 30 days. Now let's discuss how you will use these smart filters in a way that will allow you to focus on the groups of patients that you need to complete reviews on. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the top with my status conflict in patients. So I'll select that one. Then I will also select status conflict observation. And then let's choose PA status determinations completed. Now notice as you're clicking on all of these filters, you'll see the filters populate in the background. Now go ahead and click anywhere in that gray space here. Notice my 3 smart filters selected at the top. Let's say I want to start with the smart filter first. To access, I just need to go ahead and click on the smart filter title, and then I can see the amount of patients that are underneath that specific smart filter. And I will now complete those items, work through those patients on the smart filter to work down to 0. So then I'll complete my review, work on the patients on the smart filter to work this list down to 0. Once this is complete, I can go ahead and click on the little X to go ahead and close that smart filter, or I can just select the adjacent smart filter and work those patients down to 0. At the same time, I'm still able to monitor for those PA status determinations completed filter over here on the right. Once I see that the review for the status determination to a physician has come back, I can select the filter and work that case and complete the review from the physician. Now I'm going to go ahead and close out all of these smart filters by clicking the little X on the right side of each smart filter. Now I do want to review one more smart filter, but in order to do that, we are going to talk about looking at an actual patient. So there are a few ways to view their information. One way is to click on the patient, and there will be a pop-up that shows a little bit more information on the patient, including their date of birth and account number here at the top. Notice that there's a little heart icon on the right side of the patient's name. If you click on it once, the heart will fill in, and it also shows over here in your population. Also notice right below where it says view patient details right here, you'll see that the status is following. Now notice it says following until discharge. This is where you can follow a patient and save them to your unique list. Now, if you want to go ahead and follow the patient even after they have been discharged, you can click on the little heart one more time, and then you're going to have a heart with a little lock, which now means that you're following them until you manually remove them off your list. To manually remove the patient, you just click on the heart one more time, and then it goes back to not following down here at the bottom. Now that we have removed it, I'm just going to click the little heart one more time because I do want to follow that patient until discharge. And then the last smart filter I want to share with you is that My Patient. So let's go back to that Add Smart Filter here at the top. And now you'll see a little red dot appear next to My Patient Smart Filter. You'll click on that, and now you will see that patient here on your population. Now back to the population, let's say that I want to quickly glance into the patient's information without leaving the custom population. We're now going to go ahead and look at the quick view. So go ahead and click on the patient anywhere in that row once, and notice that it's going to give me the same items on the left-hand side. Above that, we'll see quick view, which is going to give me that quick view that I want to click on. And if we ever need to go into the patient's chart, just note that this is where you can click View Patient Details. For this example, let's go ahead and click Quick View. Now a pop-up box will appear. The pop-up box will appear with the patient's name. It'll also have a little heart on the right side, which means you can go ahead and follow that patient. You'll see the demographic information here. And then you're going to be able to see two sections, the views and the quick actions. Let's go ahead and start with the default clinical snapshot. Now for clinical snapshot, this is going to allow you to see items such as the max CLS. You also see current CLS, so current care level scores. You also see the factors that are contributing to the scores. So if you think back to Cortex, this is the information you'd access in that green patient dashboard within the care level score box, still including the dates and the times. The colors still mean the same as Cortex. Red is going to mean it is a significant indicator, yellow is a moderate indicator, and green, there's no contributing points to the score at all. There's also the MELP predictions over here towards the right. Down below, we have the wellness factors. Then at the bottom, you can see the chief of complaint if there is one. So that's going to give you a brief clinical snapshot of that patient. Now let's move down to encounter summary. Encounter summary is going to show you some admission information like the insurance, including if there's any authorization information here on the right side. Just like the clinical dashboard in Cortex, you'll also see the patient's hospital status down below. It includes the date, the time, and also status description. The next item on your list here is our acuity. So starting here with our initial acuity, showing those factors in red, which are affecting the initial acuity score. Same thing like in the wellness, you have the option to show all factors or just contributing factors here on the right. You can also see some details below that for the initial acuity detail, and then scrolling down to the bottom, you also see the trending acuity graph. Same concept as in Cortex, you can hover over the horizontal line and see the patient's acuity based on the specific date and time. So next here is our message feed. This is where you can leave any comments as well as tagging any Dragonfly user. So in Cortex, you're used to knowing this by clicking on the triangle on the patient's row. So you used to be able to view all comments. Now you can view the comments here in the message feed in Dragonfly and also enter comments as well. So to enter a comment, you can enter the comment here. And then I'm going to go ahead and tag someone in that comment by using the @ sign and typing their name. When you are tagging someone, you can tag more than one person. Once you tag someone, the system will send a notification to that person that they have been tagged in a comment on this patient, and there will be a link in an email to be able to view that comment. On the right side, you can make this, just like in Cortex, a high priority comment. And then if you do have a payer connection and you want them to be able to view that comment, you can click on this Show Externally checkbox. Now, to be able to save this comment, click on that blue arrow to save the comment. It will populate down below here. So just like in Cortex, you can actually go ahead and click on that little pencil over here on the right side to be able to modify your comment. Just like in Cortex, you can't delete the comment. Just like in Cortex, comments are also not private. When you tag someone, everyone is able to view that comment. In this message feed, you can see any status events as well as any comments. You do have the ability to see only status events, any comments here, notifications, and also my comments as well. So you can use these filters to find what you're looking for. Now back in the views, we're going to go ahead and scroll down to review section. Here we can see reviews that are pending or completed on a patient. You will also be able to update the next review date here. You will only be able to see this if there has been a completed review on the patient. Now moving down on views, if you do denials, you can click on this denials and appeals, and any denial placed on this account can be previewed here. Next, under quick actions is a create review. So when you click on this, this is where you can quickly create a new review. I'm going to demonstrate how to create a review in another section once we enter the chart, but I just wanted to show you that you can have the ability to enter a review here as well. This review should look similar to Cortex with a few minor changes, but we will dive deeper into it a little bit later. Now, below the Create Review section, you also have these notifications that you probably remember from Cortex. This is where you will see many of them. Now, for your example, you'll only see notifications if you clicked on a patient with the little red dot on the left-hand side of their name. So for example, this patient has short stay inpatient without a DC order. You also see patients like with a second midnight approaching, readmission, or anything regarding a review. Whatever notifications you're used to seeing in Cortex should be seen here in Dragonfly. Now from here, you can easily clear your notifications. Under the quick actions, notice the initial yellow exclamation point. You'll click on that notification. On the right side, you will have the resolution option and maybe a optional comment. Now, this depends on the specific notification that you click. So for example, if I click on this other notification, so you'll have different resolution options here and also have a comment section that is optional to fill in. Once you completed those items, you can click that resolve button at the bottom. Once you wait a few seconds here, that yellow exclamation point now turns into a green check mark. The notifications will not fully disappear, but it will turn green. And then once you resolve them, that little red dot next to your population is going to disappear. All right, so I want you to notice that we haven't left the population or enter the patient's chart. All we did was use the quick view option to see what's going on with the patient. Now let's say that I want to enter the patient's chart and I want to look at the documents or labs and vitals and do documentation as well. To do that, you click on this View Patient Details at the bottom left. Now we have opened the patient's chart. At the very top, you have demographic information, including the patient's name that you have opened, and any additional things that weren't in Cortex. So we're giving you a ton of information here, including some review information on the right side. All the way to the right, you also have a little heart, which means that you can go ahead and follow that patient until discharge or until you manually removed. Now, scrolling down this view is a little bit different than Cortex, but still have the same concept. So instead of that green patient dashboard and that orange view edit being two different buttons in Cortex, now we have them essentially side by side. So we'll have the view on the left-hand side and the do on the right-hand side. Now, on the left-hand side, you have your clinical dashboard. That same information you're used to seeing in that green button, where you dive deep into the patient's clinical data, will be here. Then on the right side, you're going to see your workflow view edit side where you're going to do something. Like think about creating a review, updating wellness, or building a visit synopsis. Think of that orange icon where you're used to completing workflow tasks related to the patient. Let's start with the clinical dashboard on the left. We're going to look at the snapshot first here. This is going to look similar to the snapshot we saw in QuickView. We have our care level scores here, our meal predictions on the right side, the wellness and chief of complaint. The additional items that we have is CPT codes. So if your facility has those, you'll see them here as well. The next tab over here is our acuity. So again, this is where you see the initial acuity and those factors that are affecting it. Scrolling down is our trending acuity graph. So this is the same thing that you saw in QuickView. The next tab over here is our labs. So just like in Cortex here, you can view your labs. Here in the date column header, you will be able to sort your labs. And then you'll also be able to filter your labs by clicking on this little hamburger icon where you can check mark the lab that you want to see or even start typing in the lab that you only want to see on this list. Remember, anything that is filtered will be highlighted in blue, and then there's going to be a little funnel icon. To reset it, click on the hamburger icon on the right and then click that reset button. Now, in the same Labs tab, you'll also have not just the list view, but the panel view as well. This is a new feature here we have added in Dragonfly. In this tab, you can see different lab panels such as CBC results, differential, you'll see chemistry, profile, and even coagulants as an example. Some lab sections in the lab environment, you will be able to scroll from left to right to see additional results. You might not see any examples where you can scroll from left to right at the moment. And then scrolling back up to the top here, you also have your historical labs. Now the historical labs you're used to seeing those in Cortex using that beaker icon that opens up a new browser tab. Now you can see them under the labs tab. If your patient doesn't have any historical labs, this tab here is going to be grayed out. The next item that we have here is our vitals. For our vitals, we have two different ways of viewing our vitals. We have our list view. Under the list view, you can add a new vital here manually. To enter a new vital, you click on that add a new vital. Then you can select the type of vital, enter the date and time, and then the value and save. I will click cancel for this example. From here, you can alphabetize by date, and then you can also filter by vital name. For the panel view, go ahead and click there. It is going to be similar to what you see in your electronic medical records. So these tabs are a little bit different than Cortex since we've upgraded these features. It just allows you to have different views of that information. Now the next tab over here is our medications tab. These are going to be the same notable medications you're used to seeing in Cortex. And again, you can still filter by the specific date or the specific medication as well. The next item we have here is our orders tab. For the orders is exactly the same as in Cortex. You are going to be able to see the date and the timestamp, and then also the title of the specific order over here on the right. We are going to go ahead and skip conditions and go to our documents tab. This is our last tab here. And just like in Cortex, you can view and open the document here by clicking the document name. To upload a new document, you would click on Upload Document here. You would enter the name, which is actually the type of document you're uploading. So you'll click on that drop down. Let's say for this example, I'm going to go ahead and upload a denial letter. I'll select the date. I'll enter the author name. So let's say my name. And then I can choose a file or drag and drop a file here. For this example, go ahead and just watch my screen. I will upload a sample denial letter. And then once you're done, you can click that upload button at the bottom right, and it will be populated here on this list. On the right side, if you uploaded this document, you can go ahead and edit, or you can delete the entire document. Please make sure that any document that you upload is in a PDF format, or else it will not work. I do want to mention that we still have our daily view feature available on certain tabs. So at the very top, you'll have this enable daily view. When you click on it, you'll be able to see all of these items on the list based on the date that is selected at the very top. This enable daily view will be populated labs, vitals, medications, orders, and documents as well. So you can see them for all of these tabs. Now for this example, I will go ahead and disable the daily view so that I can see all of the documents. And now we're going to go ahead and focus on the right side, which is our workflow view edit. Now, starting with our encounter task tab here, if you remember from earlier in training, we talked about these notifications in the quick view. You will see those here. You can resolve them from here if you're going to be accessing the patient's chart and not resolve them in quick view. It's going to be really up to your preference. This is where you'll be able to see any notifications that are pending for you to resolve. And then at the very bottom, you'll also see acknowledgement and history, which is where you'll be able to see the ones that have been already resolved. If you want to see more details about that item that was resolved, you can click on the little drop down arrow and you'll see more information about the resolve type, the status, and then the name of the person or the email of the person who completed that notification. Going back to the very top, let's go to our next tab here. The next tab is our message feed. The message feed is the same as we saw in Quick View. So you can leave a comment here as well as see the status event trail here at the bottom. The next item that we have here is our Update Wellness. So go ahead and click on that. So Update Wellness is what is called in Dragonfly. In Cortex, you're used to be able to see this information in that history or that HX or key indicators tab. So now there's only one way to update wellness. We no longer have that key or historical tab. Now at the top right corner, it will default to show all. I recommend changing this to show indicators with documentation. Now you can select one of the indicators that are in blue, or right across from it, select the document and choose a document to be able to find that information. I prefer to just select the word here on the left-hand side. So let's say I want to see if there's any indicators for tobacco and vaping use for this patient. I will click tobacco and vaping use. What it will do is we'll open the document on the left-hand side of the screen and show that indicator highlighted in dark blue, making it easy to find and confirm. So here we have our never smoker. You'll take a look up here. This is the selected indicator that we chose. In this document, that indicator is mentioned twice, so 1 out of 2 times here. And then it's currently showing us the document that we are viewing, which is our consult note. If you want to see other documents with this indicator, you click on the drop-down arrow here, and this is where you'll be able to see that information. Now, just like in Cortex, you will want to read around that word regarding its context to see if it applies to the patient. If it doesn't apply to your patient, just like in Cortex, you won't do anything. If it does, you will go up to the very top, you will toggle this indicator on, and now it is part of the Update Wellness. I do want to mention that there are other indicators that are highlighted in light blue here. So that way you can also read around that word, even if you haven't selected that indicator, to see whether or not it needs to become a part of the patient's wellness. So that is how you update wellness now. The next item we'll review is our reviews tab. First thing we're going to do here is create a new review. At the very top, you'll see the review type section. Just like in Cortex, it should already default to the appropriate type here. On the right side, you can select the next review due date using that drop-down or the calendar. So let's say for this example, we'll click the drop-down and say we'll do a next review due in 3 days. On the left, you have the review form, and then you have escalations. We'll focus on review form first. Underneath that, you have review for date. This is new. So if you want to do a retro review, this is where you can select the date for a retro review. Now going down here to the select status indicators, the options are new. Now we've made it simple and removed the agree and disagree options. So when you click on that drop down, you can actually choose from extended recovery, inpatient, observation, outpatient, and unable to review. The unable to review is if you're unsure and you want to send it to a PA to review it. Now for this example, this is the one I'm going to go ahead and select. If your facility does have Precision UM and it qualifies for Precision UM, this is where you can click on that checkbox here. Below that, you're going to be able to enter a review summary. So you can type a review summary here. And notice that this whole time we no longer have seen the clipboard feature. Now that's because you can now view the document on the left-hand side here, and you can now actually copy that information you need from that document and enter it into your review on the right side, or what we call the do section. So what I can do here is if I have a document open and I want to include this item in the review summary, I can highlight that text, right click and copy, or Control C on your keyboard, then go to the review summary, right click and paste, or Control V. And now this becomes a part of my review summary. So now we can view and do concurrently. Now focusing down here below, we have a couple items. If we want to go ahead and have the payer connection view this review, we will select Show Summary Externally. You also have the ability to do a prior authorization provided by payer here. And then at the very bottom, you can assign it to a primary payer as well. So if this patient has specific primary payer that you work with, you can assign it to that specific primary payer. Sometimes this will be grayed out, which means that the escalation process has already occurred. At the very bottom, you do have the add actions and outcomes. This is what we may previously known as findings in Cortex if your facility uses them. Here, when you click on that plus sign, we have categorized the sections to make it easier for you to find. This is where you can notate things such as C44 or moon delivery. So for example, that would be under Medicare. And when you click on that, you can select condition code 44, for example, or moon delivery. They'll start populating underneath that category. When you want to go ahead and close those categories, so you don't want to include those, you can just click on these little X's that appear next to those items. So I'm actually going to exclude these from my example. Just wanted to show you how that works. And then you can go ahead and close that add actions and outcomes. Again, it was known as findings in Cortex. And we're going to go ahead and scroll here to the top and click on the next tab over here, which is our escalations tab. For our escalation tab, this is where you can go ahead and enter a recommended second level, for example, and escalate. You can also do information sent by payer or a physician contact. These are all the same options that you're used to seeing in Cortex. So for the first one, we'll click that recommended second level review. And from here, I can choose the second recommended level reasons. So I'll click on that drop down arrow. We will have a lot to choose from. For this example, I'm just going to go ahead and click on status determination. And then from here, if you have a specific facility PA, this is where you can add their names to assign it to them. So I will just select this as an example. Now, if you are using XPass, you will be able to assign it to XPass as well. It depends on your facility whether you have internal PAs or XPass. Those options will be there based on your facility. At the very bottom, you do have that high priority checkbox that you can select from. I'm going to leave that blank. Let's go down to our escalations. Now from here, if you wanted to escalate it, for example, to leadership, you can choose a specific person you need to escalate, then the reason, and enter a comment as well. I'm going to go ahead and deselect my escalate for now. And let's go down to our physician contact. So for a physician contact, the only difference here, by the way, is that you do have to type in that physician name. Everything else is the same. So you'll still enter the date and the time, whether you spoke to the physician or not, and any comments at the bottom. I will also deselect that option here for my example. I'm just going to go ahead and keep that recommended second level. And then at the bottom, you do have the option to save as pending if you're waiting on a test or anything to complete it. For this one, I'm going to just select complete. In this screen, this is where you're going to be able to see all your reviews. At the bottom, you're going to see completed reviews. And at the very top, you're going to see reviews that need your attention. It could be that the review is pending or that the PA responded and it's just waiting for you to resolve this review. Before I go through these here at the very top, I do want to mention that you do have some sort options at the top right corner of your screen here. For example, you can sort by the next review due date, and then you can also sort by newest to oldest and oldest to newest here at the top. In each of these tiles, you do have the ability to view more information using these little scroll bars. You also have some options at the bottom, such as view. So you can view this review, you can edit the review, and depending whether or not you're the one who created that review, if you click on the ellipses, you are able to delete the review completely. Now, under attention required here, if the PA responds and it requires resolving, it will show at the very top here, and then you'll see that resolve button. I'm going to click on that resolve button now. These are the same responses to the PA task resolution that you had in Cortex. Now we've selected a resolution option from the very top. Based on the physician advisor's response, for example, I would choose no further action. You can go ahead and enter a review summary as well if you need to, and show externally if you have an external payer. And then we'll click that complete button at the bottom right corner of your screen. Now the review will fall back under that completed reviews, and you can see the PA task resolution tile right here that we've just completed. And lastly, you will resolve the review just like you resolved the review in Cortex. So that is how you complete a review. I'm going to go ahead and scroll here to the top and click on the next tab over here, which is our visit synopsis. So first, we're going to go ahead and click on Create Visit Synopsis. This again is very similar to Cortex. For the visit synopsis, we're not selecting a template unless your facility does use templates. The description here is still required field, so I recommend that you add a title and a date. So choose from the date selection below here to include the data for your synopsis. The default setting for the show all information is reverse chronological order, but I'm going to go ahead and change it to chronological order. Under the Clinicals tab, we'll start with our analytics. In the clinical dashboard, go to your snapshot for your wellness here. And you'll also be able to toggle here to the acuity so you can decide if that information you want to include. So from here, if you do want to include the wellness and the acuity, you would just click on those check boxes next to those two items. Now you can go ahead and minimize the analytics section here. I'm going to go ahead and scroll a little bit here so you can see it. Now moving down to labs, this works just like in Cortex. You do have the option to include all the labs, choose specific labs, or also include out of range values only. I'm going to do out of range for labs and vitals. The next tab here is our notable medications. You are still going to be able to select the specific medications you want to include in your synopsis. So for this example, I do want to go ahead and at least select one medication. So on your end, go ahead and select one so you can see how it looks like in that business synopsis document. And then the last section I'm going to review here is our clinical orders. So for our clinical orders, very similar to medications, I'm just going to go ahead and select one item that I want to see in our visit synopsis and then close it. And if your facility is sending CPT ICD-10 codes, you do have that option to include them below here. Now moving over here to the Documents tab, exactly like in Cortex, you do have the option to open and preview the document before deciding if you want to include it, or you can just select the document checkbox here on the left-hand side if you want to include it to your synopsis. Go ahead and select at least one document for this example. Now, the last tab here is your synopsis note. The synopsis notes will look a little bit different. One of the differences here is that patient reason for visit moved here. So when you click on that little check mark, make sure that you type in that primary diagnosis if you want to include it here. So I'm just going to type in primary DX so you can see where it's going to go in that visit synopsis document. Down below, you're going to be able to write additional notes. And it still works the same as it did in Cortex. You can include pictures that include wounds. You can copy and paste parts of the progress note, or even impressions of radiology reports. Using the scroll bar here, go all the way to the bottom. You will be able to see the review summaries. And then if you want to include those review summaries in the business synopsis, you can choose that review summary by clicking on that checkbox. Now I am going to preview the visit synopsis first because once we complete it, we cannot make any changes just like in Cortex. So you can click that preview button at the bottom. That preview is going to open over here on the left-hand side. So from here, you'll be able to see that document. Once you click that preview button, you'll be able to see patient information, patient reason for visit, additional notes. We've attached our wellness, our acuity. We've also attached one medication and one order. We'll also see any additional items that were attached. I, for example, attached the HNP. I've also attached your review. So depending on what you've attached, you'll see how many pages are going to be a part of this visit synopsis. And as you're reviewing, you can still edit and make changes on here on the right side. Once you make the changes, just go ahead and click that preview button again so you can see those changes update here in your preview on the left-hand side. From here, once you have completed reviewing your business synopsis, you can click that complete button at the bottom. So from here, you'll be able to view a tile with completed visit synopsis. Down here, you can go ahead and view that completed visit synopsis. You can also click on these three little lines, so set that ellipsis. where you can delete the synopsis completely. And then you can also click on this fax button here. When you click on the fax, this is where it gives you the ability to fax this visit synopsis. In the stage environment, please do not send any faxes or we'll actually send the fax. In the recipient field, you can choose numbers from your fax library. You could also narrow down by typing the name, then selecting it. And if you don't already see the recipient names, you can click on this Add Other Fax Recipients and enter that information manually. I'm going to go ahead and click on the X here because I don't want to enter anyone right now. Down here, this is going to be your sender information. And remember that that information you entered under your profile, under that settings, that's going to go ahead and be entered here automatically. So you'll see your work number and your fax number here. Now going down the line here, we have our subject, which is already pre-filled based on your visit synopsis title that you've entered. It will also include a cover page sheet and then any comments that you want to add. Once you're done, you will be able to click send. Remember, we're not clicking send here. Dragonfly will still attempt to send the fax 3 times, just like in Cortex. If the fax fails, then it'll be deemed as failure, and then you're going to be able to receive that email notification that the fax has failed. So that'll be the visit synopsis. The next item that you have is your payer authorization. So go ahead and click on that. You might or might not be using this for your facility, but if you do, this is where you'll be able to create a payer authorization and or view payer authorizations depending on your role and your access. If your payer's authorization information is being sent from your electronic medical record into Cortex, you will see it here in Dragonfly. When you click on this Create Payer Authorization tab, it works just like it does in Cortex. You'll be able to fill in all of this information here. And once you're done filling that information, you'll click that Save button. We will not create one here in this example, so I'll just click that Cancel button at the bottom left. Now, the last section here is for denials. I feel like this is a great upgrade from how it was presented in Cortex to enter the actions, outcomes of the denials. It's pretty straightforward and much easier than it was in Cortex. I'm going to go ahead and briefly go over this section. So you're going to go ahead and select that Create New Denial entry here, essentially letting Dragonfly know that you have received a denial. From here, you can go ahead and choose the denial type. It will default to concurrent denial if the patient is in-house. If the patient is discharged, then it will default to retrospective denial. On the right side, I'm going to go ahead and leave that status for now as in progress, and then I'm going to go ahead and choose the assigned to. So let's say I'm going to assign it to this user here, and then I'm going to enter denied. So I am clearing all of these little asterisks. That means that is a required field. So I'm also going to say that this was denied by the primary. On the right side, I'm going to go ahead and enter the denied received date. So let's say that's today. And then the last item is the denial reason. So let's say for this one, I'll say medical necessity. And in your live environment, please go ahead and fill out any other information you have regarding this denial, including the contact information. Once you're done with this entire form here, you can go ahead and click on that Save button at the bottom right. Now, this is going to make that initial denial entry, essentially including all the main details of that denial right here. Any step or action you take in that denial, you're going to be able to add an appeal step here. So once you get that outcome, you can come back and update it. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to add a appeal step. So I'm going to go ahead and click once here. Notice that my status is going to be in progress. Let's say I choose clinical submitted to payer as my action down below here. I will also add the action date over here on the right side. And then at the very top here on the top right, I'm also going to choose a follow-up date. Let's say that I want to follow up in a week from now. So I'll say the 9th. And then at the bottom, I will click Save. Now from here, we can see the progress the denial is in, and we are waiting for an outcome. Let's say some time has passed and the payer responded and they overturn that denial. I will update my entry by editing the appeal step here first. I'm going to go down to the bottom here and click Edit. Now going down to the section here, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. For the select outcome, I'm going to go ahead and click that little drop down and say that this was overturned. So denial overturned. I'm going to select the date over here on the right for the outcome. And now instead of being in progress, I'm going to go ahead and check mark that completed for the status and select Save at the bottom right. Now, if there are any additional actions to be taken, I'll add a new appeal step as in progress and then await an outcome until I have completed that denial. So that's where you can go ahead and do another appeal step. In our example, our denial is done. So notice my main denial entry is still here in progress. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and edit that denial here by clicking on the little ellipsis at the bottom right corner, clicking that edit button here. And then at the very top, all I want to do is make sure that I change the status from in progress to completed, and then click that save button at the bottom right. So now then the denial entry will show as completed, and then it's also going to reflect on the denials and appeals work queue that I will show you shortly. The last tab here is for your PDRGs. If your facility is using PDRGs, you will have this tab available to you. And then from here, you are able to view any PDRGs, or you can go ahead and click on Add New DRG right here. And this should be similar to Cortex, so you'll be able to add a DRG manually from here by entering all of this information. So this will include the date and the time of the predictions, its probability, the description, and even the GMLOS. I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel for now. So that is all of the tabs in the patient's chart. Now let's go ahead and navigate over to the top bar navigation, which is at the very top right here. The first tab you're going to see here is your search. So click on that search. And in that dropdown, go ahead and select Search All Patients. For this screen here, this is a little different than it was in Cortex. We no longer have the admission ID, that HIPAA compliant number in that email notification. We now include a link to the patient's chart. You can still search by all of these other items, however. For example, the first name, last name, date of birth. You can search by discharge date, presentation date. Even on the right side, you can limit search to hospital census or specific facilities. And then you could also search by account number and MRN over here on the left-hand side. Let's go back to that search tab here and select recently viewed patients. Now for recently viewed patients, we have made some changes. Now we are including the last 21 patients charts you've entered. So not just on this session, but if you logged out and you would still like to see those 25 patients when you log back in, you'll still see them here. The next tab over here is our work queue. So go ahead and click there. The first one is our patient work queue. We have already went through this throughout the training, so I'm going to skip that. Let's go to our denials and appeals work queue. In this list, you can monitor the denials and appeals. It is filtered by specific headers. So for example, this one is filtered right now by denial status. Remember, you can always click those three little dots here, that hamburger icon, and reset those columns to be able to view all of the data down here below. You might not see any denials or appeals populate in this list right now because we are in stage environment, but you will see them in production environment. Note that you will also be able to change different columns in here. These columns are different from the patient work queue that you're used to seeing. Just remember, you can go to your column waffle over here on the right, and then you can go ahead and access all of those columns that are available and any that you need to turn on or change the order. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into the work queue because we will actually go more in depth on this during your denials class. The next item here is your work queue. So if you go down to your work queue, you'll see your facility dashboard. The facility dashboard is what you call work queue dashboard in Cortex. This shows an overview of all the facilities you have access to, including smart filter information for each facility. This is a very convenient, comprehensive, centralized hub, especially for leadership or weekend staff to stay informed about the activities across the facilities. By clicking on one of the filter options over here on the right, you can quickly narrow down those sets of patients. For example, you can see your status conflicts here. You can see inpatients as well as observation patients down below, or even your second midnight approaching patients. For this example, let's go ahead and find our observation greater than 24 hours. When you click on that little box that appears with the little arrow after the number, you can click there once, and then it's going to bring up that list with that smart filter for that specific category you chose. Next, go to your work queue and then select your message center. In your message center, this is where you're going to be able to see those notifications you were used to seeing in your work queue, as well as things like comments you were tagged in, if you had any failed faxes or primary payer changes. You can see messages for all the patients and all the facilities you have access to, and you do have the ability to filter by a single patient or facility or any of these other items that appear here at the top. The next tab over here is your reports. Since we are in stage environment, we will not have access to the reporting here, but you will see this in the production environment for advanced Dragonfly reporting. If you previously have access or currently have access in Cortex for advanced Cortex reporting in your Tableau, you will have access to this in Dragonfly. We also have the outbound fax log here, just like the one in Cortex with a few upgrades. So go ahead and click on that now. It will automatically default to you as the sending user. So you have that filter here and 30 date range. You can unselect sent by me and 30 date range to be able to remove or change it to another selection. Since we are in stage environment, you might see faxes from other people, but you will not see any faxes because we didn't send any. However, I do want to point out that one of the nice columns that you have available here is the status column. And for the status column, you'll have three different types of statuses, which is failed, in progress, and success. Now, the nice thing about this list is once you do have patients in here, when you click on the patient once, you will be able to see a nice pop-up box with more information about the status. You'll be able to see things like account number, date of birth, fax sent to, and even the fax status down here, and the option to resend that fax if it had failed. At the very top under reports, we are going to go ahead and skip the transfer log for now. So let's go over to our references. The first thing that you'll see here is your quick links. So when you click on this, you will see any quick links like Excellence University, the support portal tickets, or your workflows. If you use them in Cortex, you're going to see them here. So you'll be able to access them here. Right now, there aren't any, but in your production environment, you'll see them under quick links. I'm going to go ahead and exit out. The next under references is your inpatient only CPT search. So click on that. Now this does look a little bit different than it was in Cortex, with only 8 slots to enter the CPT codes and the date of service. So now you can choose a date here. And then over here on the right, you're going to type in a CPT code. So let's say I'm going to type in 33945. I'll press the search button. And then I'm also going to type in 27447. So a big change here is that now you do have to enter each CPT code separately instead of entering them together with a comma separating both of them. Notice that for yes, it's going to be in black text, and for no, it will be in red. The difference between Dragonfly and Cortex is that we no longer show the removal date if it was prior to 2022. And that is all that I'm going to be reviewing for today for this training. For this training, please feel free to continue to practice in your stage environment and chart as well as play around prior to your go live. You will get a new login link for the production environment, so don't forget to update your settings again and check that receive email notifications once you are live. Between now and your go live, if you think of any questions, let your leaders know so they can reach out to a clinical consultant or project manager for further insight. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.